fill in your name into the chat and let us know where you're from and the program you are with, and then also a communication strategy that you are using. Communication begins with students when students enter your program, and it's an ongoing process that can face many challenges, but communication that is done well establishes the foundation for the success of your program. And that's why it's so important and why we are addressing that today. So my name is Bev Schumacher. The session is called Building Family Partnerships, Communicating Effectively. I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I have a company called Learning Props. I have worked as a parent involvement coordinator. I have worked as a teacher. I've worked in a public library. So I have a number of experiences that have led to my passion for working with families. The session today has been coordinated by Vicki from Lone Star Products and Services, and she's out of Texas. She's second down on the things. Yeah, thank you for waving. And she has been working with me to do these webinars. I have a company called Learning Props, as I said, and Vicki's intending to carry on that when I get a chance to retire. So that's on my list of things to do. And I also want to thank BB Kinnett for being with us. BB is from Absolute Marketing, and she's in Indiana, and she's a friend, and she's very techie. And so we wanted to make sure that she was there because she helps me out of more binds than you can possibly imagine when it comes to technology and websites and all of those wonderful things. So we thank BB for being with us as well. Last year when COVID hit, I took the time that was very much available at the time, and I went about updating, enhancing, and expanding a book that I had previously been a co-author to. And the product is a menu for building family partnerships. And when I selected that title, we picked menu because menu kind of describes what happens. If we get a chance to go out to eat someplace, whether we drive in, whether we do takeout, whether we sit in a restaurant, as we've not been able to do in the last year or so, we are faced with the choice of what are we going to choose? And we are usually provided with a menu to pick and choose from. So I'm not embarrassing myself saying I want sushi at a sandwich shop, or that I'm asking for the things that that agency wants to provide to me. So that's where the word menu came from. And as we talk about working with families today and about communication, I want you to keep in mind that we need to offer a menu for families to pick and choose from, and that we then match what we serve with what they are interested in. The first chapter in that menu book is called Sharing Information with Parents and Families. And it's a fairly long chapter. And the reason it's the first chapter is that without effective communication, we do not build the partnership we need to work together. So what I hope to accomplish in our exchange today is to explore effective communication strategies, consider how you can enhance your commitment to communicate with parents and families, and for you to make a commitment to apply at least 3 practices within your program that could enhance effective communication. So that's kind of my goal. If you have a question during the presentation or a comment you would like to make, go ahead and enter it into the chat. And BB's going to kind of help coordinate some of those ideas and suggestions, questions for our conversation a little bit later. So where we're going to start is I first want to give you the challenge that you will walk away with 3 different ideas of things that you can apply. I created some handouts for this with a lot of fill in the blanks to kind of concentrate our conversation and have you with a takeaway when our session is over. These were shared with you, but Vicki, you also posted them on the chat. Is there anything they need to know to find that?
No, I'm actually posting them right now.
Okay, so they're being posted right now so that you can pull those off and utilize those. It will guide you as we go through our conversations and help you to record some of the thoughts that we share in our process of sharing with you today. We also will have handouts at the end of some of the slides that I show some different tools that you can use. And we also will be posting the slides from this session so you can go back and refer to them if that would be helpful to you. So the arrow shows you where you can jot down 3 ideas. And if you don't have the handout, please do that on a piece of paper. The next slide shows something that I call the family communication menu inventory. As I started working with other programs and we talked about communication, many times programs said, oh yeah, we have great communication. And then we'd say, well, do you do a policy book? Do you share information on a website? And people kind of went, oh. So we put together a list, and it's just a limited list. There probably are other strategies that can be listed there, but I challenge you to use this tool that Vicky's posting for you, that you can do this survey and kind of assess where you're at. Find out what's working for you. If I asked you what you're going to have for dinner tonight, you might say, I'm going to have pizza. And I'd say, oh, great, I'd love to join you for pizza. Pizza's pretty nutritious. It's not a bad meal. It's also, in my opinion, a quite tasty food. But if you had pizza tonight, and you had pizza again tomorrow night, and you had pizza every night, pretty soon it would lose its appeal and it wouldn't be nearly as effective. So that's what I'm wanting you to kind of take away, is that you need to have a variety of things on your menu, a variety of options that you use so that everything stays fresh and inviting and appealing. And our concentration today is going to be talking about working with families. The same strategies we talk about with communication also apply to how you interact with coworkers, how you interact with family, friends, etc. But understand those strategies, when they are done well, do impact the effectiveness of our work with the families that we serve. Who is most responsible for communications? Reflect on your program. Who do you see as the main responsibility? And I hope you don't mind, but that is not supposed to be a trick question, but it is probably kind of flawed. I'm hoping you're saying, well, you know, where's she coming from? I think all of them are important. And I would agree that they all are important. So it's not just the administrators and the classroom teams, but also the families that impact how we can effectively communicate. But think of all the others in your program. I'm going to pick on Joyce. I was chatting with Joyce as she just signed on to the webinar, and she has a wonderful title of family engagement. Hi there. I see her now. I'm not sure you can all see her. But her title is family engagement. So when something pertains to families, they probably come looking for her and say, hey, this is on your plate. You take care of this. I'm going to share that the program I worked with in Kentucky received a state award for our family engagement. And our family engagement award began with a phone call that this group made to our school. And when they talked to our receptionist, and she treated them with respect, and she was welcoming and accommodating, that began the road to our winning the award. So it begins with everyone. A snappy bus driver who's had a bad morning before he picks up a child and says something negative to the child or the parent can totally undermine our efforts that day. So it's important to realize that it is truly everybody within the agency that you work with that impacts what happens. What is effective communication? Not intended to be a trick question. It's not the same for everyone. I can ask a teacher and they say, oh yeah, we have great communication. And then we turn and we do a survey with the families and they find out, no, they don't feel like they are well informed. So we have to be very, very cautious about what is effective communication, because it is impacted by personal perspectives and circumstances. Mm-hmm. And as we begin this conversation today, I have to emphasize to you that we could do a whole webinar just talking about family culture and diversity, language, but it's important to realize that you have to start from that base already. When you talk about communicating, you have to have ways to assure that every family member has the opportunity to be communicated with effectively. Mm-hmm. What are some realities about working with families? First of all, their point of view may be different from yours. Their circumstances, their life experiences may be different from yours, and you can't judge who they are based upon your standards. A third of parents in a research project I did said, I'll do whatever the teacher asked me to do. So when the teacher wasn't asking families to do certain things, families thought, oh, the teacher, she's taking care of all this. I don't have to worry about this. It's not on my shoulders. But learning it's what we do with the family that's so important. Parents often are trained for a career, but they might not be trained for their role as parents. Families are busy. They have so many things on their plate. I sometimes in this last year have looked at my children and their raising of their children, and I realize, oh my gosh, they are so overwhelmed. They have so many things happening and so many responsibilities that life is stressful for them. Very often, if you are providing services, whether you're in a childcare, whether you're in a school, if families see that you have things under control and you look like you're in control, they very often assume, oh, they've got it covered. I don't have to worry about teaching my child to read. I don't have to worry about math. They're going to learn that all at school. And that becomes a false sense of security. So what's most important is we constantly have to reaffirm that we need to work together. The COVID year has taught us a lot about working with families. And one of the important things is that many programs found out is until we help families figure out how they're going to find childcare, how they're going to get food on the table when their jobs are shut down, until we find out how families need our support, we really can't do our job well. I'm going to talk about some what I call defining words, parent and family. I'm going to use those words interchangeably. Matter of fact, as I was working on the book, I would go through and I would do a count. There's a word parent, there's a word family. Now the next one should be parent. And just to make sure that there was a balance between them. Another word that I like to use that kind of describes everybody is called stakeholders. Anybody who is involved with the care and the learning of the children we support are stakeholders. So each one deserves our respect and deserves our cooperation in making them a role player in that child's life. So that could be a grandparent, it could be a foster parent, it could be a blood relative, it could be somebody who is not married to the family. So there's so many different family combinations. Just understand the people we're talking about today are all of those stakeholders. Whoever they are, you need to acknowledge them when you connect with them, and you have to know their names. Calling somebody by their name is the first step to building a solid relationship, because they realize, hey, you know who I am and I'm important to you. The word involved and engaged have kind of traded places in our whole conversation. I was a parent involvement coordinator when I began my role about 30 years ago. And now the terminology is family engagement specialist. So those two words have kind of moved around. I like to use the description of my marriage to my husband. When we first started dating with each other, a word got out, Bev and Don are dating, they're involved with each other. But when there was a ring put on my finger called an engagement ring, our relationship stepped up to a different level of commitment that we made to each other. And that's what we want. We want families to make a commitment to us, to be in a strong relationship with us so that we can support learning. And then school plus home equals learning. This is a phrase that I've used for years, and it says it all in 3 words. It's what the program does plus what the home does that impacts the learning. If you hear me do a presentation, I'll probably throw this in every presentation that I do, because this is what I firmly believe, that their parents or partners, what is the difference between those 2 words? So I'm going to challenge you, use the letters in the word parents and try to spell the word partners. And I've put them on the bottom there that I've kind of mapped them out, and you can see we draw lines between each one. We're doing okay on this challenge until we realize parents has 7 letters and you're asking us to spell an 8-letter word. It's not going to happen. You're right. We're missing 1 letter. We're missing the letter R. The difference between a parent and a partner is you are. So the question is, how are you building relationships that are partnerships? Trusting relationships are built on effective communication. On your handouts, I've given you a space and asked you, parent or partner, what's the difference? And you're going to fill in there that you are the difference. And I'm going to point out that in the bottom sentence, trusting relationships are built on effective communications. You'll note that those trusting and effective are in yellow. If you read the next question on your handouts, it says trusting relationships are built from effective communication. So that's a hint to you that those words fit into the fill in the blank spaces on the worksheet that I gave you to work with. Again, if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat as we go on. If you have been in the family engagement field for a while, you understand Ann Henderson is a guru. She has been an expert in this field for over 40 years. She's practical, she's knowledgeable, and recently she had this blog shared, and I just read it and I went, yep. Families are struggling to manage their children's remote learning at home, master the technology of connecting to a virtual classroom, and get access to learning materials. Above all, they crave more connection with their children's teachers and schools. That last sentence, above all, they crave more connection with their children's teachers and schools. That cries out partnerships and communication. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to use a question answer kind of strategy for sharing information. So we're going to go through a number of questions and follow with answers. So the first question is, good communication is the blank for healthy relationships. Did your brain say foundation? You may have come up with a different word, but the word I was going to throw out was foundation. If you don't build a solid foundation, the building that you build upon it is not going to be very sturdy. So foundation is a word that I was looking for to talk about. Good communication is blank. Good communication is two-way. It's giving information and it's getting information back. I've raised 3 children. I learned long ago that just because you told them something doesn't mean the message reached them or that it was processed. So it's about giving information, but also getting feedback about that communication. The second part of it, we have blank ears and blank mouth, and we should use them in that proportion. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that proportion. In other words, listen more and talk less. I worked with someone who was very reflective. Whenever you asked a question, you would just see this kind of process of glancing around, and you knew he was thinking. And so you learn to pause. That pause time, I was told, is between 10 and 15 seconds. So when I ask somebody a question and they don't pop an answer right back at me, instead of going on and talking more, I need to stop and listen more and give them the chance to process what they want to say. Whenever he came up with his comment, you knew it was going to be good and insightful and taken many thoughts into his answer, but you always had to pause and wait. And that pausing is what I'm suggesting. Sometimes the best things that parents told me were the things between the lines. I'd hear comments like, yes, I got that, but I didn't have time to fill it out. Oh, I got that, but I didn't understand. So when we hear feedback from parents, we sometimes get the insight from them of, you know, what I thought was perfectly clear, they didn't get it. When beginning relationships, we need to blank the blank. We need to charge the battery. We need to share positive messages about their students. We are very much in a negative world where negative news is the first thing everybody shares rather than the positives and the encouraging. So think about the fact that parents who have not had their student for the time of day that we have missed out on all those things, and we should share positive things to build their knowledge. What are some of those initial relationship building kind of tools that we could use? On the far left is a communication context survey. This is something I put in my book. It's Appendix B. And we will share a copy of this with you afterwards. What I basically want you to do is to make sure as you begin a relationship with a family that you pause and you say, how do I reach you? What is your preferred way of being reached? What time of day is a good time to reach you? That way we find out how we reach out and how they would prefer to be reached. On the right side, that telephone there with the message, before service begins with a family, your program and teachers need to reach out to say to that parent and to that family, we're excited your child's coming. And then share something about your plans, about what you intend to do, about your style of teaching or something about you, to start making them feel welcome and to make them feel appreciated. After I put this slide together, I thought about my son moving. We learned twice in our life that you shouldn't move kids when they're juniors in high school. That's not the most adaptable age in order to pull a child away from their friends and move to a new city or a new state. And yet we had to do it. And my son was a junior in high school. Apprehensive was the best choice of words to say how he felt about moving. He was so concerned he wouldn't fit into his new school. And I had a high school soccer coach reach out and say, hey, I hear your son's coming to our community. I look forward to him being on my team. Tell me about his playing experience. And when my son had the opportunity to speak to this coach, his life turned around and he suddenly had a whole different attitude about the impending move and about his new high school and about the new community he would be a part of. In the middle, you see what could be a sticker, it could be a magnet, but families need to know as well, how do they reach you? So if they need to reach you, what's the best time? What's the best number that they should reach me? If they're going to send me an email, do I need to warn them that I spend my day directed to the children's care and I don't always have time to respond to emails, but I'll do it at the end of the day? They need to know that information from us just as we need to know it from them. And do parent questionnaires. Ask them to fill you in on their child. They're the expert about that child. What they know about that child can help you in the work that you do serving that child. And by all means, have some kind of a handbook, have some kind of written policy that helps programs to define exactly what you expect, what your policies are. So when there are any questions, there's something to go back and to refer to. Share information in a format that is preferred by the parent. There is no one size fits all. For some, the phone is their lifeline. For others, they will take time to read information you send. And as we've moved to so much technology, I will be perfectly honest to say families are overjoyed with a nice postcard or a letter or a mailing from their student from the classroom sometimes. So think of all the different varieties of ways of reaching them. The most effective communication is face to face. Share conversations eye to eye. If you have the opportunity, make sure that you position yourself that you are at least at their eye level, if not below. When I did home visits, I found that sitting on the floor put me at eye to eye with the student, and that was the best way for me to interact with them. But if the parent sat on the couch or sat in a chair, if I was on the floor, it allowed me to not be as important as they were. I was always looking up to them. So think about that. Anytime you have that opportunity, be at or below. I wish I could see all of your eyeballs today. That would make me much more comfortable doing a presentation where I could actually see each of you, but that's not possible. So someday we'll get used to seeing everybody, that they're not with a head about the size of a dime anymore, and life will take on a different way of communicating and effectiveness, I hope. Nonverbal responses speak more loudly than blank. Nonverbal responses speak more loudly than words. If you're alone in wherever you are right now, and you can do this out loud, otherwise do it in your mind. But I want you to go ahead and say, you are a great parent. Like you were saying it to a parent that you wanted to give affirmation and encouragement to. Go ahead and say those words. I'm going to ask you to say those 5 words again, but this time I want you to say it like it was something you'd say under your breath, like you'd say to a driver in a car next to you that pulled in front of you. What's the difference? You had 5 words. The 5 words did not change. The tone changed. The purpose changed. Try it again. Use the word thank you as if you're sincerely accepting appreciation for what they did. And use the same 2 words again and say it as if you're being sarcastic. 80% of the message is not the words, it's the way it's delivered. I don't know about your household, but there have been times when I've said to my husband, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. So imagine how sometimes things can be taken wrongly when we say things to families. Never assume blank know, or that they don't blank to know. Never assume families know or that they don't want to know. Communicate with all stakeholders. Send every message blank times, send it blank different ways. Send every message 3 times, send it in 3 different ways. Oh, we sent those invitations to everybody for the open house. You're going to have to repeat it 2 more times for that message to really, truly be received. And Vicki and I were talking the other day about marketing. We're not sure that that number is not up to about 7 or 9 times we have to connect before we actually make a real connection. Magic words to share with families. Thank you for blank that to my blank. Magic words to share. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. There is no magic wand in this communication process. When something is amiss and we have upset a parent or upset a child, and somebody brings that information to us that they are upset, we don't deny it. We apologize whenever we can. I'm sorry that happened. Let me look into it. Thank you for making me aware of that. And sometimes you have to go through the chain and find out, where did this happen? What is happening? But continually reaffirm to them that they and their child are important to you, and you will get to the bottom of this. A sandwich has 3 parts. There are going to be situations when families come to you with a concern, or you have to address families with a concern. And we have to think carefully about, how do we address this? The first thing we start with is a positive comment. And to that, we share whatever the issue is. and we close affirming that resolution. Oh, we'll work this together. We look forward to your child being with us. We affirm a closing. Use that for any kinds of conversations, which I call sticky conversations. So let's practice. Let's say Samuel's a student with us and they're frequently late for the day, for the start of the day. We say to the parent, we're delighted you've enrolled Samuel in our program. He's getting along well with the other students and seems to be very comfortable with us. Let the parent share some information with us, but then go on with the sticky part. We serve breakfast from 7:45 to 8:15, and it's a time when children interact with each other and get a nourishing start to the day. Samuel often arrives as everyone's finishing eating. Tell me about your morning routine and his response to coming to school. What possible solutions do you suggest so he can benefit from that social time with his classmates and get breakfast? Maybe mom's having a hard time bringing him in. Maybe he doesn't want to get out of the car, that he doesn't want to leave. Maybe getting up at that time is a challenge. Find out what's going on. Or has the child had breakfast at home and doesn't want breakfast when they come to school? So they're dragging their feet so that they don't have to eat breakfast. Find out what the problem is. Where's the disconnect? And then after you had that conversation, commit to resolving the situation. I'm going to pause for a second. Bibi, are there suggestions that they made about communication strategies that they're working for them that we can bounce around?
No, we've got some, kind of a quiet group today, and so I'm here waiting to get suggestions. However, Connie has been really good with filling some of the blanks in there, and has made some very good fill in the blanks. They weren't always the same as yours, but hers were really good. So we did get Connie's making some suggestions for us.
Very good. I appreciate that a lot. And if you have any suggestions or comments as you go along, I'd like to say, Bibi, that we're answering all the questions so well that they don't have any questions, but I know that they have some concerns. So don't hesitate to give those to Bibi and we'll come back to them in a little bit. After an issue has been raised and addressed, make note to follow up. Whether that is Post-it notes. By the way, they're a great friend for those of us who are aging or have a busy life that we kind of forget about doing things. They could be notes we put on our calendar, follow up with parent X, remind parent X how this is working. But we have to come back to them and say, is that working out for you? And the majority of the times that they're going to go, oh yeah, everything's fine. But on those occasions when it's not, we nip that problem in the bud and we go ahead, try to find another solution. It could be an email, it could be a message, many different ways for you to be able to gather that information or do follow up. Shared information needs to be both blank and blank. It has to both report and forecast. It's great to know what has happened, kind of like reading the newspaper the day after. Oh, that all happened yesterday. But the most impactful thing for us as educators is to be able to tell them what will happen and how they can be a part of it. Here's a freebie. Information everyone needs to answer. Bet you got this one. English teachers have taught this for years. Answer the who, what, when, where, why, and how. I've done many in newsletters, many in invites, many communications, and sometimes you just want to hit yourself on the head and get to the end and go, oh my gosh, I didn't say who was invited. Oh, it's for everybody, it's families. So be very, very cautious that you answer all of those questions, and what you do, pause and address them. Door messages, at best, have a blank % of effectiveness. The answer is 50% if they are coming to your program and picking up their child or coming into your program. If they go on the bus or you walk them out to the curb like we're doing now, door hangers don't have an effectiveness. They really do not get the notice. If you were attending a webinar that I was at in person and you were in the same room with me, I would have put a notice on the door that said, we will be reflecting about how we communicate with families. And about halfway through the presentation, I would say, how many people saw that sign on the door? What did it say? And my experience is that about 10% notice the sign. So if you put a notice on your door, hey, don't forget such and such, understand that if parents are coming into your program, that only one contact of that stakeholder family has had that message. Will that message be passed on to the rest of the stakeholders? So understand it's a good step, but it's not usually very effective. A caring statement is a comment you share to express your blank, blank, or blank. It's made to express your interest, your concern, or your commitments. We value you and your student. I'm excited to have your child in my classroom. I want all students to be successful and happy. We will work together with you. And then the magic question there, how is? I worked with a school psychologist doing home visits. I learned in a crash course how effective that question, how is? How is your student enjoying school? How is your child? How are you? And as those questions were asked, more information flowed. Then you would say, why don't you tell me about this? When we asked how. And remember, 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we are wise to use in that proportion. I statements describe what you need, you want, or you wish. These are just as effective as care statements, but they focus on maybe bringing in a new behavior or a follow through. I'm focusing on self-help skills in class, and I need your help to encourage XXX to dress independently. I hear your concerns. Give me your insights on how you handle this at home. I want your student to become a successful learner. Tell me what you see as their strengths and as the goals that they have. Ask families what they need, what they want. I use this skill very often as a parent. If I'd say, go back and shut the door, I instead learn to say, I need you to shut the door. It puts the blame on me, not saying, how in the world could you have done that without finishing that? It reduces the blame from the students. Written information should be blank and pass the blank test. Written information should be proofread and pass the dollar test. The dollar test is to take a dollar bill and lay it on something that we send out printed. Usually newsletters are a good example. It has to come in contact with a frame box, things with bullets, things that are highlighted, title headings, captions, pictures. If you have too much content, they're not going to read it. It just becomes overwhelming. They skim it and they don't walk away with the key ideas. So the dollar bill is a way to kind of judge that. So if you're sending home a letter to families and you lay that dollar bill on the middle and you realize all it is print, then we need to find a way to separate that out to bring attention. The proofreading, I have this sentence in the menu book that I finished this fall. This sentence reads very easily. I hope you could read it with me. So easy for eyes to not see a mistake. I know because I made it. Did you get that out of that sentence? So easy for eyes to not see a mistake. I know because I made it. When my spell checked this, when I was reading the book, it came up with 4 errors in that sentence. When I did the PowerPoint and I put this together and I did the spell check, it only came up with 2. Yeah, it's so easy to have a mistake because I've put it in that whatever I wrote, I don't see it. You need to invite somebody else to read it to see it. Simple words like horse and house and am and you know, something else that's of that same nature. You don't see those words. They're so easy to miss. Families will pay the most attention to information that is blank to their child, share issues when or it influences blank. Families will pay most attention to information that is specific to their student, share issues when parents can do something about it, or if it influences safety. Sure, they care about your whole program. Sure, they care about the classroom the student is in. But when it's specific to the needs of their student, that's when you've hit the target. And information, if parents can't do something to change what's going on, then don't bring it up. Remember, I said we are so often a negative society. When parents get reconnected with their children and connect with you, they want to hear good things, not negative things. Things that might get some attention. These are some things specifically to printed materials, but the newsletters come up as one of the main ways that programs often communicate, but it also has pertinence to any other kind of written communication we do. When we include pictures, it helps them to see what's important, just like picking up the newspaper. Most people pick up the newspaper, their eyes glance at the pictures first and the captions underneath, and that helps to let them know whether they want to read the whole article. Look for colored paper that helps to always denote the same information. So we found that by sharing information on purple paper, that was the color that represented pages for parents. And we refer to that very often. When it's purple, it's a parent page. And as a result, that was the only time that purple paper was used. But they saw it and they go, oh, that must be for us. So they recognize that. If you're going to do some kind of a newsletter or something from your class, make it some kind of a border, some kind of a heading that indicates immediately to them that it's from you or from the classroom. Include the sign and returns occasionally. If you put a sign and return on everything you sent home, it wouldn't be important anymore and they would stop paying attention. But occasionally a sign and return is a good way to let them know that, hey, this is important and I need to let the teacher know that I got it. It doesn't mean every family is going to get it back to you, but that tells you which families have seen it and have responded and narrows down the ones you need to follow up with. Children love adding stickers or rubber stamps to things that you send home. Let the children color an area that's going to be going home so that they have a personal stake in it, want to show their family. Use names, but if you're going to use names, make sure over a period of time that every student or every parent gets named. Bullets and frame box and list help to simplify the number of words and makes it a little bit easier to follow and pick up ideas. Certainly watch your reading level. If you have a program, do a check and find out what grade level you're directing things to. I would not go above a 9th grade reading level on something that I was sharing with families. 8 words per sentence is another quick way to reference that. Your sentences are beginning to be 12 and 14 words long. You need to make 2 sentences. If there's something that's very specific in that communication that you're sending home that relates to a specific student, add a personal note in the margins. We actually had a wonderful little newsletter we shared with families every other week. And we found out that parents liked the newsletter. And when I actually did a little survey and said, what do you like about this newsletter? It was written at a really wonderful level and it gave them activities to do with their children and finger plays and songs to do. What we found out is they liked the message that was on the back every 4th issue. When teachers had to fill in a space and share some information about their student, that's what they liked. So we stopped carrying the newsletter and we increased the number of personal communications with note cards and little cards, and they were much happier. Other ideas about newsletters, just because we share so many of them, just some thoughts about them. If it's in columns, it's easier to read than if it's one big document that goes from margin to margin. If you can break it into frame boxes, those are a lot easier to be read. And maybe you have a consistent number of boxes, like a classroom teacher who does a once a month newsletter might always have birthday celebrations or might always share special activities, dates of events to come to. If those are written into as opposed to being typed into, it does not change the effectiveness of them. So don't think, oh my gosh, it has to be typed. No, it can be just hand shared. So just have some format that's recognizable, that's appealing and attention getting, and they will pay more attention to it. Some other practices that work. This is some back and forth communication tools. So the folder on the lower left is about return or keep. So I put this in for the families to take home, and they know which items have to be sent back and which ones they get to keep. Journals, especially when you have smaller classes or younger age children, that parents can get information from the staff member and have a place to respond. And the lower right is another parent-teacher communication. This one I actually did on a carbon paper. So I would have staff members fill in the top portion, and then on the bottom, it actually asks the parents for a reply. And in this way, we carried this communication back and forth. This is typically for more serious kind of communication efforts. Evaluate which communications are most effective for what you are doing. Ask for their surveys. How many times do we get on the phone and we're having a conversation with someone? They say, please hold the line, and at the end, answer our survey. They're looking for customer service ratings all the time. If you have some kind of an advisory committee to your program, ask them what's working, what communications do you pay attention to, what do you remember from what we've shared, and ask them for their input. Even if you hear community gossip, it's a good way to get some information back. Sometimes we do miss things, and when we hear about them, it's not always bad, but it means there's an area where we have to close gaps. Do a program survey. It could be questions that are posted when they pass the front desk. It could be questions that we put out while they are waiting for a parent-teacher conference. Ask them for their input. Casual conversations, especially if you have them in for a program, have somebody walk around with a survey tool and say, tell me about what would you like to see, what has been working. We also did a program we called Slice of Advice. We brought in experts. We brought in a principal to talk about kindergarten transition. We brought in the school psychologist and the speech therapist to talk with parents who had students receiving services. But every time they came, we said, okay, now it's your turn. Give us your advice. And you served a piece of pie or a pizza, and it was an immediate program. Chart for recording communication efforts. This has to come from your idea of, excuse me, of what do you want to communicate with families? How do you want to reach out? So if you say one of the strategies I want to take away is I want to send a personal note to each family, or I want to make a positive phone call, you would list those across the top of the chart and the students' names down the side. And over a course of a period of time, hopefully you've checked off every student having received those kinds of communications and connections. You're going to make a phone call to parents. Plan out what you're going to say, especially for when they don't answer the phone and you find yourself on a phone message system that you can quickly deliver the message. It still can reach the family. It just means you're going to have to follow up because it's been a one-way communication rather than feedback from them. These then can become notes that you put into your system so that you have documentation of the efforts that you have reached out for families. I found doing home visits, families missed me sometimes, and I needed a way to say, I was here today, but I missed you. And I started them as just simple things that I cut out with a die cut machine in the district. And I eventually went to a carbon thing so that I had documentation. Oh yes, I was there at such and such a time. And the message you leave can be positive and encouraging. I looked forward to seeing you today. We had some fun activities to do and I have a free book for you. That way parents know that there's a reason to have you back again and to set up another appointment. So simple little tool, but it made a difference, and it's one of the products that I market. Communication strategies that I have found helpful. These are some of them. On the left side, it's called Sharing Our Learning Day. And what that does there is it allows Post-it notes to be filled in order to describe what the students had learned that day, or they could be messages dictated to the teacher, or they could be something that the students drew. And that way, when it goes home, they go, oh, wow, look what my student has done today. The bottom left is a sticker. Indeed, I advocate putting stickers on children. I put them on backpacks, on lunch boxes, and for younger children on diapers. But just say, hey, look, mom, dad, look, stakeholder, this is what we've done. And this is how you can carry that on. They can be put on their backpacks. They can be shared on a phone. A picture sent to a family is a quick, efficient way to show them, look at the great things that are happening. The upper right folder was actually created when one teacher said, but families haven't been coming. And so as a result of many people missing her parent orientation she was doing in open house, we put together pictures that explain what the learning day was like. And she wrote a personal note on the back and sent it to a family. It came back and went to another family. It worked so well that the next year she told the rest of the staff and I had to make 14 of them. So that took a little bit longer to do. One of the things that I have done is created sent home materials, and out of those sent home materials grew what I call my kits. They're learning games, because we saw that kits were used more often by families than if I just sent things in a plastic bag for them to do. And so we found that not only did we want to give them an activity to do, but it was important to give them additional information. So there's an area called learning hints, so that I can tell them this is why this idea is important and give them some information. I put out one of my games here. This is a patterns game. And on the back it says, this game challenges the child's ability to recognize qualities of same and different. This is an important pre-reading skill to master. To understand this skill, consider the same and different characteristics of a B, a D, a P, and a Q. And then we also offered more fun things to do. So if I had the family's attention and they were having fun, they might carry some of the ideas out further. This one says, how many different patterns do you see around the room? Look carefully, because sometimes you can see patterns even in solids. So we found that sharing that kind of information helped our families to go deeper, but we had to pause and say to them very often, did you do it? How many times did you do it? Who did you do it with? What would you suggest for a new kit? So we asked them for their feedback and their input. We also did something called a home practice page, and the practice page had an activity to be done on the upper portion, but on the other lower section, we would say, what has been their progress? So we would ask them to tell us what they saw and to help us set goals for learning with them. So I challenged you at the beginning. I said, I'm going to ask you to take back 3 ideas. So I'm going to ask you to enter into the chat and give baby something to do. Share what your suggestions are. We're going to go through another 2 slides, and then we're going to kind of come back. So again, if you had questions or comments, I will be glad to address those as well. This is what Learning Props All offers. My menu book is showed there, the door hangers. We do the books that we offer in English, in Spanish English, Arabic English, and Chinese English. So we have 4 different language options. The game kits that I showed you are available in English or bilingual Spanish English. Each one comes with a book. It comes with the dice and the movers. So that's kind of the product that I started to create. I saw that families were just anxious to work with their youngsters at home, but they didn't always have the resources to work with, nor the ideas sometimes of what those concepts were. I found this list of important words and I thought it's so awesome, I need to share it with you. The 6 most important words: I admit I made a mistake. The 5 most important words: you did a good job. 4, what is your opinion? 3, if you please. 2, thank you. Number 1, we. And the least important word, I. So I've also put together some thoughts for directors. So directors and administrators, if you are with us, I really do emphasize coaching and staff training. And as we have good communication, it so directly impacts the marketing and the promotion of your program. So these are ideas just for directors and administrators. And the very last slide is information. These are just some talk it through kinds of situations. I gave you 4 situations, but then I also said, what do you need to know How do you react and what do you do? So think about how you do staff training and answer those kinds of questions with problems perhaps that have arose, that have crossed your desk as an administrator or a leader in the school, and to have staff talk about it. I found very often that some of my staff were excellent at communicating with families, and some of them just fell apart when they had to talk to somebody that was taller than 4 feet. So understand that not all staff members are always comfortable addressing families. So BB, share with us any questions that I should be answering.
Well, I don't have any questions that have popped up at this point. However, I do have some comments that people have made. You've had 2 people, Connie and Nancy, who have said that they used your door hangers and that they really feel that they are very effective. So that's nice feedback from those 2 people. So we appreciate that.
I'm glad they
Um,
work.
And we've had people say that they've been using Zoom for communication and virtual teams for communication. And one person said that they really liked the idea that sharing information at least 3 ways and loved your newsletter ideas. And on my personal note, one of the things my son's grandkids teacher did was they created a private Facebook page. So if you're a little techie like me, you kind of enjoy those things, but private Facebook page is a way of communicating with parents too.
Awesome.
And so
There
that's
are
that's the
some
feed-
wonderful programs out there that I'm not currently in the field doing right now, so I can't speak to any of them. But there are some very technology-based kinds of systems that help to send messages to families, that help to share, like BB said, like a private web page, that there are like connection sites. So if you're looking for those programs, talk to other people in the field and say, what's been working for you? Especially in the early care field, I know there are a whole bunch of them. I have some notes from previous conferences, but I haven't been at a conference for the last year, so I'm not picking them up as quickly. I do have a few names tucked away of different programs I've heard about. But if you do use those programs, make sure that all of the components that they offer get used by the staff. It's very intimidating for staff who are not technology based to get used to some of those systems. So make sure they get trained to be able to do that. Any ideas being shared of something somebody's taking back besides what you've already shared, BB?
Nope, that's it.
If you have questions, we would be very glad to answer them. As I said, we will post the slides that you can share them. And if you have any questions, I would be most honored to answer any questions that you have. We did do a webinar about a month ago called Learning Continues at Home, and Vicki has that posted on her website. Is that correct, on Lone Star?
I actually have it and I can send it to anybody. And I'll send it along with this one.
So if you would like to see that, and Vicki and I would also like some input from you if you would like to share. We're thinking about doing another webinar. We're like on the fence about, do we try something in May? Is May like, let's get this school year closed down, take a breath and get started? So we'd love some feedback as to when would be a good time for the next session. I'm thinking of one that's called, yes, learning can be fun and games, because it sure can be. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. If you have any other suggestions, comments, please be in touch with us.
Please remind me how to get to this recording, to the recording of the session.
Okay, Vicki,
I
I'll
will be
let you do
sending
that.
it. I will be sending it out in an email to you probably this evening.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.